Welcome. In this tutorial, we're going to continue looking at the Pixlr photo editing service. You can find that at pixlr.com, Pixlr.com. And today we're going to look at creating graphics from scratch. We're going to look at the use of layers and a number of the tools provided by the image editor. The first step is to click on the Pixlr editor link, and that will open up the editor itself. Now this time we're going to click create a new image, and we'll be prompted to, we can give the image a name, but also we need to determine the width and height. Now for this project we are going to use some presets. For this image product we're going to use a width of 940 and a height of 198. And we're going to be creating a header graphic that can be utilized within our blog. I'm going to click OK, and it opens up the space here. Now notice that I'm able to see almost 99%. Let's see if I can bump this up just to 100. And I think it might be useful to pull these layers, the layer menu, the navigator menu, down on the workspace. That way I can expand this out. And I'm looking at it 100%, the navigator says. And here we go. The first thing I'm going to do is to open up an image that I have prepared. And I'm going to choose this UNM logo. I'm going to open that up. That's a GIF file. And I'm also going to open up a picture file that I would like to use with this. And I can prepare these images. The first step I will do here is to take this photograph and resize this down. Let's make the image size 200 pixels in height. Now of course, depending on what image you use, the size will vary, but I think that those 200 pixels will fit well within the canvas that I set up. What I plan on doing is going to edit, select all, and you'll notice that you get this broken moving rectangular selection area, and you know that that's selected. And I'm going to click copy. Now that I've copied it onto my clipboard, I'm going to click over to my new graphic, and we're going to create a layer, and we're going to drop that photograph right on the layer. One way to create a layer is to go down to this layers menu here, and we see that right now all we have is a background layer. I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to double click on layer, and I'm going to write photo. And the reason I do that, I label it, is so that I know as I increase the number of layers, I know which element is on which layer. Now I know that a layer is selected because it's highlighted in blue. You can highlight it just by clicking on it. And I have my image still copied in the clipboard. All I have to do is go to edit and paste. And now I'm going to choose the arrow or the move tool here. And I can start to move this image around on my canvas. And I noticed that actually it copied it onto a new layer, so why don't I go to the layer that I labeled, and I'll throw that to the trash, and I'll name this one photo. And now I'm going to click over into this image, and I'm going to shut that. I'm done bringing that into my workspace. And no, I don't want to save that, but that's fine. I'm going to do the same thing with this. Instead of selecting select all, I'm going to choose the marquee tool, And I can do the same thing as a select all just by starting at one corner, holding the button down and swiping across until I select the whole image. I'm going to go up to Edit, Copy, and we'll see if I paste this time if it also creates a new layer. And it did. So now I'll hit the Move tool and I'll move this sort of over here. And I'll go to my layer and I'll say, let's call this one Logo. And now I can shut the logo itself. No, I don't want to save that either. So I'll drag this down just so I can, as we start to add more layers, be able to keep track of all of the elements that I'm adding. Now might be a good time to hit File and Save. And this time I'm going to save it as a PXD, which is the Pixlr image proprietary format. And notice that it says it's a layered picture image. When you save a PXD, just as if you were saving a PSD in Photoshop, the layered information is saved when you save the project. That way, if you want to go back and edit the project later, you can always open up your that file type. When you save it out as a JPEG or a PNG, the image is then collapsed, all the layers become a single layer, and you won't be able to go in and edit individual elements on layers anymore. So while you're still in work mode, be sure to save it as the proprietary format, whether that's PXD or PSD. I'm going to hit OK, and it's going to prompt me where I would like to save this. And I'll just call it header. Now I'm just going to save it in the same folder where I had my photo and logo elements, and so I'll click Save. Great, so let's look at some more tools. One fun tool that I like is the gradient tool, and the effect that I'd like to do is to blur this edge between the photograph and the white space here. And so I'm going to choose the gradient right here, which moves from white to black, and it gives me a number of options. The option that I'm going to pick is this one that goes from white, and then you see this checkered board, and that's a signifier that the background will be transparent. So we're going to go from white to a transparent background. You could change the color. You could choose a color here, like blue or red, and then this gradient here would go from the blue or red into the transparent. But right now I'm just going to choose white, and it's indicated up here. So I'll click off. Let's create another new layer, and in this layer I'm going to call it gradient. I'm going to be sure that that gradient layer is selected, and note that I can move a layer by clicking down on it and dragging it either up and down, and you see that there's a sort of a line that indicates where it's going to go. Now I want this gradient to go under the logo but over the top of the photo. So I want to be sure that I have the logo on top, photo on the bottom, and that the gradient layer is selected. I have my gradient layer tool chosen, and now I'm just gently going to click down, maybe starting right about here, and just pull barely onto my photograph. And as you can see, I get just the littlest bit of blur from white to clear. And I'm just going to pull it a number of times until I get the effect that I'm looking for, which is just sort of a soft blur from the white onto the photograph. Great, and I think that that works for me right now. You can always hit File, Save. The next step, I'd like to think about adding some text here. So I'm going to go to the text layer, and that is the text tool, and that's signified over here in my tool menu with a little A. When I click on that, it gives me sort of a cursor looking a cursor for my arrow, and what I do is I click where I would like to put my text, and you can always move this later. And you're prompted with a little text box to add the text, so I'm going to type in OLIT 525. Instructional multimedia. I think I'll shrink the size a little bit by using the slider. Oops. Maybe take it to 25. I can change my font here, and as I scroll over I can see what the effect is going to be. I can move this slider down. Choose Arial. I'm going to choose a new color. This is sort of an interesting color slider here. I can move sort of towards the color I'm looking for, which is a blue, and then I move this arrow a little bit, whether I want it heavier blue or more towards a blacker blue. I'm going to move it towards a darker blue here. I'm going to click OK. Now, if you have a hex code, which is a 6-digit alphanumeric code that represents the colors, if you've been given that by a designer, you can always enter a hex code here. And I'm going to click OK. It makes the change. Now I can change the style, bold, italic, etc. But I think I'll just leave it plain. I'll click OK. Now I can click on the Move tool, and I can move my text just the slightest bit. I'll add one more text layer, maybe right underneath, just denoting which term it is. And this one I'll make a little smaller. This time when I click the color, I'm gonna move this color selector menu out of the way. Note that I get a dropper icon for my arrow. Now, if I don't want to use the color selector wheel here, I can use this this dropper to sample new colors. For example, I could sample this pink color, and then you can see that it shows up in the color selector. Or I could sample this sort of blue color that I was working with by clicking right on there, and I'm going to say OK. And I think that looks good, so I'm going to click OK. Now note that each time I added a new text layer, I can see the layer in my layers menu, and it gives me an idea of what the text itself is. Grab my arrow, and whatever layer is selected with the move or the arrow tool, I can start to move my elements around a little bit.